Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is Saturday, our Pali Canon and English study group. I'll explain to you guys what that is later, but just so you know, today is a day that we study the original teachings of the Buddha, the words of the Buddha, and we base all of our teachings here on the words of the Buddha, but today is a specific day where we actually study his actual words, and I'll explain to you guys how we do that when we get to that point, because the way that we start our class is we start with meditation. Everything the Buddha taught is to help you train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state where your mind can be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All those feelings have been eliminated through purifying the mind, that your mind is only experiencing peace and calm, serenity and contentedness with joy. And this happens through training of the mind. Nothing in the teachings of the Buddha is based on belief, so you're actually training the mind. There aren't rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship. Even if you've been exposed to those kinds of things and they were in environments that looked somewhat Buddhist, that's not the original teachings of the Buddha. He never taught rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. He taught you to train your mind and cultivate wisdom about the world around you. So we're going to start with meditation to help you train your mind, and then we'll move into studying the original words of the Buddha. So the way that we start with meditation is we start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. If you would like to chant along, there's chanting sheets over there on the cabinet that you'll be able to see what I'm chanting, and you're even welcome to chant along. For anyone who's online, if you would like to see these chanting sheets, you can go to our website, buddhadailywisdom.com, click on free books, and then down towards the bottom, you'll see the chanting sheet. As I'm chanting this, it's important to understand this isn't anything mystical or magical. This isn't a prayer or worship or anything like that. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory, that every 2 weeks his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. Because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world, so they needed to use something to be able to commit the teachings to memory so that they could then practice his teachings and train their mind. So every 2 weeks his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. So this was the origins of chanting. And because of that, you can see that there isn't anything mystical or magical with chanting. No matter what people share with you, you can see for yourself that there's nothing mystical or magical that's happening with chanting. Today, we use chanting as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, it was used purely as a way to remember what he taught, because everything that he taught was oral. They didn't have the ability to write things down during his lifetime. It wasn't until after his death that they actually wrote his teachings down. If you read the English translations on these chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't even think the Buddha actually created these chants, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around saying, here, chant these things for me out of admiration for me. This would be like the ego or arrogance. And an individual who's gotten to enlightenment, they're not putting themselves above others and looking down on people. So the Buddha wouldn't have done this kind of thing. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state. And this is a permanent mental state that you'll be experiencing for the rest of this life. You probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too, because the Buddha didn't want anything from his students. He didn't expect anything from his students. He just shared out of the kindness of his heart how he got to enlightenment so that then other people could actually understand that and then experience the same mental state that he was experiencing. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. And then in terms of once we are done chanting, we're going to go into meditation, and you're going to hear me actually guiding you during the meditation. I'll be kind of giving you instructions while we're actually meditating. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. Everyone here at the temple and anyone who's joining us online will just all be meditating at the same time. Now, I'm sure during this period, you might hear an occasional sound. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping. You might hear someone sneeze or cough or something like this, because you can't be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. It's just not possible, because you live in an impermanent world. But if your mind craves permanent quietness, when you hear a sound, you're going to cause yourself to be frustrated or annoyed. So whenever you hear any kind of sound in an environment when you're meditating, just understand that it's impermanent, it's going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. And as long as you don't have a craving for silence, then when you hear a sound, you won't be frustrated or annoyed. And then after we do that period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together, we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class. In terms of your body position for meditation, the Buddha taught 4 positions: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you can use these at different times. You would need to learn them as part of your journey to enlightenment because your body can't be in the same position permanently. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'll teach you guys a little bit about the seated position. So you'll learn about this and you'll be able to use it as you're getting started on your journey to enlightenment. So in terms of your body position, it's really up to you. You can sit however you're comfortable. There isn't just one fixed way to sit. People sit in different positions. But if you're on the floor in a chair, this is a common way to sit. Some people like to sit on a sofa or a bench, or maybe if you're at home in a wheelchair or something like that, you might be experiencing any of those kinds of situations, and you can find whatever's comfortable for you. So the guidance that I provide you today is just some recommendations or some suggestions that you could consider. But it's up to you to find whatever it is that's comfortable, because there isn't just one fixed permanent way that everybody needs to sit. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear, and if you're going to cross your legs, you might just bring them together lightly, because if you have them real tight, this can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. So you'd like your legs to just be lightly crossed. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So if you like to put your legs off the mat, some people like to do it that way. In terms of your hands and the arms, the Buddha put his right hand over. Some people prefer to do it other ways. There's other options here. You could put your palms on your thighs or your knees. Some people like to put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you find whatever's comfortable for you. It's not just one fixed way to actually sit. And then for anyone who's in a chair, on a bench, or a wheelchair or something like this, sometimes people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles. But you can see me, I'm sitting in a chair with my legs crossed. So this is an option for you as well. And then in terms of your upper body, it's helpful if the upper body is erect, with your sternum up and your shoulders back. This will keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid, the mind can be overactive or uptight. And you like your mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you need your mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation so you can eliminate these unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities. So by having your upper body erect, it'll help your mind to stay attentive and alert so you can actively train your mind. It also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to start with some chanting. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'm going to come back in with some guidance during the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Wat Tung Bhagavanang Apivateyami Savakhato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato สัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you'd like to just establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Bhoto Bhagavati. All right, if you would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. Everything the Buddha taught is to help you train your mind to be able to get to enlightenment. What enlightenment is it's a mental state that you attain in this life through purification of your mind. As you're training your mind, you're uprooting the pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. There's certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered that when you eliminate them out of the mind will be completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You no longer experience any discontent feelings. So all those feelings I was mentioning at the beginning of class, you can actually eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing them. So you can eliminate your anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. You can get to the point where your mind's focused. You have concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Because when you uproot these pollutions out of your mind will be performing optimally. You'll notice that your personal, professional relationships are really blossoming. They're at ease. Because right now you probably have a certain amount of bitterness or hostility in some of your relationships. Maybe you find it a challenge to interact with your parents or your siblings or your life partner or your children or other people like this that are really close to you. This is because of what's going on within your own mind, and you can eliminate that and get to the point where all your relationships are harmonious. You can get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood any longer, that it's physically impossible for you to experience a bad mood. And this comes through training of the mind. And the Buddha's teachings are to guide you in how to actually train the mind. you're not believing his teachings. He doesn't teach any kind of belief whatsoever. You're learning, examining, and investigating his teachings. You're independently verifying whether they're true or they're false. And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating into your day-to-day life the tools and techniques that he's teaching you of how to actually train your mind. And this is what will produce the enlightened mental state. It's a gradual training, a gradual practice, and a gradual progress. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is people think that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then he instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. That you can see in your own life, everything you've ever done in life has been through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Whether it's learning to read, write, and speak English or any other language that you speak or read or you're able to write, it was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Maybe some job or occupation that you perform. It was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. The Buddha says in his own words that it was gradual training that led to his actual enlightenment. And then what he did for the rest of his life is he shared what it took for him to get to that enlightened mental state. He shared it with other people so that you could learn how to get to that enlightened mental state yourself. And you'll be able to see that that's occurring because you'll know situations where you're normally frustrated or agitated or annoyed. You'll be in those same situations and your mind won't be experiencing that any longer. So you'll know that it's these teachings that are actually helping you and guiding you to an improved state of mind because you're going to be able to see it in the way that your mind's performing in your day-to-day life. So what I do here at the temple is I have various classes, courses, retreats that are helping students to be able to learn how to get to this enlightened mental state. And I provide everything at no cost. There's books, there's audiobooks, there's videos, there's podcasts, there's personal guidance. You can even sit down and talk with me privately and I'll help you. And as I mentioned, there's classes, courses, and retreats. And what I suggest for most students to do is start with this first book. This is the first book that will lay down the foundation for you of how to actually get to enlightenment. And you can get this for free by downloading it from our website. You can take it and go print it yourself. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost. Or if you have access to Amazon, you can get it on Amazon. It's titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. It's part of the Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden book series. And this is the place where most people will start in all of our foundational programs. Like Sunday and Wednesday is a great time to kind of learn the foundational teachings. We also have courses throughout the month and throughout the year where students will do that. But then we have this program. It's called the Pali Canon and English Study Group, where volumes 2 through 13 of the book series, we go through that chapter by chapter each Saturday. And now we're actually in volume 9 of the book series. This is titled The Six Sense Bases, and we explore the chapters that are in this particular book more as a study group. Where all the other programs that I teach, it's more of a traditional style of learning where I'll teach for 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up for questions, teach for another 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up for questions. This is the way that I typically will teach people in all of our different classes and courses and retreats. But in this particular program, we do it a little bit differently. We do it as a study group. What I do is I invite students here at the temple or anybody who's joining us in Zoom to be able to read one of these chapters from this particular book. This is chapter 21 of volume 9. And these chapters are pretty short. You can see this one is like a page and just a little bit right there. After somebody reads the chapter, then I will share some teachings on that chapter, helping you guys to understand how to integrate this into your day-to-day life. And then I'll open up for any and all questions that you guys have related to this specific chapter. If you would like to volunteer to read either here at the temple or online through Zoom, you're more than welcome to do that. If you would like to volunteer to read here, we have microphones in the white bowl. All you need to do is get a microphone, press the gray button, the lights will come on. You just hold it up to your chin. We'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you speak here without a microphone, we wouldn't be able to actually hear you, and they wouldn't be able to hear you online either. And then you can keep these microphones with you because you might actually have a question, or you might volunteer to read more than one time, or someone around you might need a microphone, and you can just share the microphone with them. And when you're not using it, if you could just turn it off, that way we won't get any feedback through the speakers, that would be great. And for anybody who's in Zoom, if you would like to volunteer to read, all you need to do is electronically raise your hand. I will see see that, and then you can unmute your microphone and you'll be able to actually read. We'll be able to hear you here and throughout the live stream. When we get to the question period, if anybody here would like to ask questions, once again, you can use the microphones. And if anybody in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom has questions, you can either put that in the comments section and I'll be able to see that, or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. So if there's someone who would like to volunteer to read this first chapter, you'll see how the program actually goes, how we actually teach the class. Just get a microphone and you'll be able to read this first chapter. And then, like I mentioned, I'll share some teachings on this afterwards. You'd like to volunteer? Yeah, go for it.
One must put forth extra intention, effort, and energy. Monks, though a monk be not skilled in the habit of others' thoughts, at least he can resolve, I will be skilled in the habit of my own thought. Thus, monks, should you train yourselves. And how is a monk skilled in the habit of his own thought? Just as if monks, a woman or a man, or a young child fond of self-adornment, examining the reflection of his own face in a bright, clean mirror or bowl of clear water, should see there is a stain or speck and strive for the removal of that stain or speck. And when he no longer sees it there, is pleased and satisfied because of that, thinking, again, it is to me that I am clean. So monks' pondering is most fruitful in good condition. Thus, do I or do I not generally live with sensual desire or craving? Do I or do I not generally live with ill will in the mind? Do I or do I not generally live possessed by complacency? Do I or do I not generally live with restlessness or worry in mind? Do I generally live in doubt, or have I crossed beyond it? Do I generally live with anger or not? Do I generally live with soiled thoughts or clean thoughts? Do I generally live with body aroused or not? Do I generally live sluggish or full of energy? Do I generally live uncontrolled or well-controlled? Monks, if on examination a monk finds thus, I generally live with sensual desire or craving, ill will in mind, possessed by complacency, restlessness and worry in mind, doubtful, angry, with soiled thoughts, with body aroused, sluggish and uncontrolled, then that monk must put forth extra intention, inclination, aim, effort, energy, mindfulness, and concentration for the abandoning of those evil, unwholesome states. Just as monks, when one's turban or hat is ablaze, for the extinguishing thereof, one must put forth extra intention, inclination, aim, effort, energy, determined mindfulness and concentration, even so for the abandoning of those evil, unwholesome states. One must do the same. But if on examination a monk finds thus, I do not generally live with sensual desire or craving, ill will in mind, possessed by complacency, the restlessness and worry in mind, doubtful, angry, with soiled thoughts, with body aroused, sluggish and uncontrolled, then that monk should make an effort to establish just those wholesome states and further to destroy the fetters, taints, or pollution.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So, as I mentioned, everything the Buddha is teaching you on the path to enlightenment is to purify the mind. There are certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind that when you uproot these pollutions out of the mind, you'll be able to experience this peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state. This is something that you can actually experience in this life, and you'll know that you're making your way towards it, as I mentioned, because your discontent feelings are gradually diminishing. So here, what he's saying is that it's important that you observe your thoughts, that you kind of see what's going on within your own mind and become skilled at that. And that's part of what meditation is helping you to be able to do. That meditation we just did, that when your mind's on the breath and it moves off the breath, you notice that like, the mind moved off the breath, and you're building what's called mindfulness or awareness of mind. You need to have that general awareness of what's going on within your own mind, because oftentimes people go through life without awareness of their thoughts and their ideas and the things that are going on within their own mind. Oftentimes what people do is they will blame their negative feelings on other people. Other people aren't causing you to be angry. Other people aren't causing you to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. This is actually coming from within your own mind. That's why you can actually eliminate these thoughts, these feelings. If it was everybody else that was causing these discontent feelings like anger and frustration and other things like this, you'd never be able to eliminate them, because you can't change other people. You can't force other people to do things your way. What the Buddha is talking about here about these unwholesome qualities of mind, he's talking first about sensual desire or craving. What that is where the mind is longing, yearning through your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, the body, and the mind itself. That the mind is wanting contact that is permanently agreeable. So that when you see something, for example, that is agreeable to you, you might get happy or excited. Like maybe you see the sun and that's agreeable to you, and you get so happy or excited. Or maybe you see your bank account balance on your phone app or on a statement, and you're like, wow, and you get so excited because you see something that is agreeable to you, right? Now you're so happy and excited. That's the mind wanting permanently agreeable contact. And when you see something that's agreeable to you, you get happy or excited because of your sensual desire. But then the problem with that is these things are not permanent. Everything around you is impermanent. So if you base your happiness on the sun, well, the sun is impermanent. That's why your happiness isn't permanent. You haven't been able to get to permanent happiness in your life because the mind is basing its inner feelings on some external condition. Because as soon as it turns to rain or some other type of weather event, now the mind is frustrated or agitated or annoyed because it's seeing something through the eyes that is disagreeable. Or if your bank account balance was up here and you got really happy when you saw that, well, then when it changes and it goes down, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed because the mind is now having contact through the eyes that is disagreeable. So the mind is doing this with all the different sense bases. It's not just the eyes. It's the ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself. So for example, if you're in a car and you're at a stoplight and someone pulls up to you with some music that you particularly like, it's like, all right, that's my jam. Yeah, let's dance. Let's have a good time, right? You're like so excited dancing in the seat of your car. And then the light turns green and you go through the traffic light, you pull up to another traffic light, and somebody else pulls up to you with some other music that you don't like. This is disagreeable contact through your ears, and now you're getting frustrated because you don't like this music. It's not that other person that's causing you to be frustrated. It's your own mind because of this sensual desire. The mind is craving and longing, yearning, wanting things to be permanently agreeable when you can't get things that are permanently agreeable to you because you live in an impermanent world. So this sensual desire is going to keep causing you discontent feelings over and over and over and over again. I can give you an example with the nose. Say you're walking down the street and you pass a flower shop and you smell some odor from the flowers and it's like, wow, that's so amazing. Oh my gosh. And you get so excited and so happy. But then you walk a few more steps and you get a whiff of the sewer coming up from the ground and it's like, and now you're repulsed by that sewer. Right? So this is coming through the nose. And this is happening, like I mentioned, through all the sense bases. So the Buddha is not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's not explaining to you rules and commandments. Like I mentioned, he's not giving you rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship. He's explaining to you how the world works. He's explaining to you how your mind is working. And then he's giving you the tools and techniques of how to transform this so you no longer experience this. Because when that person pulls up to you next to the music that you particularly like, it's like, all right, that's great. Have a good time. Enjoy yourself hearing that music. But when that person pulls up to you with music that you don't typically listen to, you don't have to be angry. You don't have to be frustrated. It's an impermanent situation. They're only going to be there for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and then they're going to be going on. No need to get frustrated. Same thing when you walk past that flower shop and you smell that odor. Wow, that's a really nice odor. Wow, smells great. But now when you smell the sewer, it's like, that's an interesting smell. Let's keep walking, right? No need to get angry or frustrated or irritated. Just keep walking, because this smell, this odor is impermanent, right? So when you understand how your mind works and you don't crave permanence, you can actually get to a point where you're no longer experiencing discontentedness. Right now, you might have certain expectations, certain things you want, or you're craving, or you're desiring from your parents, for example, or from your siblings. You want them to be a certain way. And when they're the way you want them to be, you might be happy. But when they do things that the way you don't want them to do, you might be frustrated or angry. This isn't your parents or your siblings causing these discontent feelings. It's your own mind that's doing this, because your mind is having sensual desire, this longing, yearning, and wanting things to be a certain way. And when the mind's getting what it wants, it gets those pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation. And when the mind's not getting what it wants, it gets the painful feelings like anger, sadness, and frustration. And when those are arising, this ill will is in there. This ill will is like the anger, the hostility, the bitterness. This is where, when you're noticing that painful feeling of anger and frustration starting to arise, you might actually push people away. You might have done this with your friends or family, where you've pushed them away. This is called aversion, where maybe you're not interested in being in a relationship with them anymore. You don't want that, and you're trying to push them away, thinking that that's going to solve your problem, because the mind perceives the problem to be external. The mind thinks that mom or dad or brothers or sisters or friends or family members are the problem, and the mind will maybe push these people away. Or when that anger is arising, that ill will is arising, you might be bitter and harsh and hostile through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal. It's like, "Rrr." This is someone trying to fear another person into doing things your way. And you might have damaged relationships in this situation. You're not a bad person if you've done these kinds of things. It's just that your mind doesn't understand what it's doing. And part of what the Buddha is helping you to do, a big part of it, is to cultivate the wisdom to understand this. Because the third thing that the mind will do when it falsely believes the problem is external is you might put your expectations on people and try to control them and force them to do things your way. And as long as you're doing these things where you're pushing people away, you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and you're putting your expectations on people, you can't live harmoniously with all beings, because it's only a matter of time before someone around you does something that you disagree with. It's only a matter of time. And if you can only be peaceful with people you agree with, then there's only one person in the world that's going to do things your way all the time. Do you know who that person is that's going to do things your way all the time? He's saying it. You guys know who it is? Yourself. That's it. You're the only one that's going to do things your way all the time, because every single person in the world has had different experiences. But sometimes what the mind thinks is my way is the right way. That's the ego. That's the arrogance. My way is the right way. Everybody else is doing it the wrong way. And now the mind expects everybody to do it my way, when there isn't just one way to do things in the world. There's multiple ways to do things. But if you have that ego in there, if you have that craving in there, wanting everybody to do things your way, when it's not being done your way, you'll get angry and frustrated. And then you'll push people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or you'll put your expectations on people. So the Buddha is teaching you to look at each one of these things within your own mind to see if your mind is doing this. Because if it is doing this, you need to be able to train it to be able to not do that. And that's where his tools and techniques and other teachings that he has will help you to be able to do that. What complacency is where you're dull and lethargic, like you're unmotivated, unenthusiastic, where you're just not interested in like studying the teachings of the Buddha, or you're not interested in washing dishes or vacuuming or doing the things that you need to do in your day-to-day life. You're just kind of dull and lethargic and lazy. If your mind has that, you're going to need to eradicate that. This restlessness and worry, that's like an overactivity in your mind, like anxiety, right? There's a way to eliminate that. What doubt is where you have doubt about the teachings of the Buddha. Oftentimes people do have doubt when they come to the path to enlightenment. They doubt whether this enlightened mental state is even true, whether it's even possible to get there. They doubt whether the Buddha actually even lived. They doubt so many things. And that's normal when you first come to the path to enlightenment, is that someone has doubt. The way you eliminate doubt is through investigation and examination of his teachings. You don't eliminate doubt through belief or blind faith. That's not how you eliminate your doubt. Because if you investigate and examine his teachings and you apply them in your day-to-day life, you're going to see that they actually work. They're true. They actually work. And you'll see that your mind's getting more and more peaceful. And as you see your mind becoming more and more peaceful, eventually you get to the point where you eliminate your doubt. So you can actually harness your doubt. You can say, you know what? I do doubt the teachings of the Buddha. You might say that. I don't have any doubt about them, but you might have doubt about them. You say, you know what? I do doubt the teachings of the Buddha. I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'm going to sink my teeth in, and I'm going to try to figure out if these teachings are true or if they're false. And that's what the Buddha is inviting you to do, is to examine his teachings, investigate his teachings. And as you do, you'll be able to see that they're true and they actually work. And that's how you get rid of your doubt. And then, of course, he's talking about anger. This is like the bitterness, the hostility of the mind. Soiled thoughts. This is like, dirty thoughts, things like this. Body aroused. This is like where someone's like always wanting to go out and have sex or have pleasurable things touching the body. Sluggishness. This is like dullness, lethargic condition. Living uncontrolled. This is where the mind doesn't have discipline, where maybe you go out on a spending spree and you just spend a bunch of money, or maybe you go out and eat a bunch of unhealthy food, or maybe you go out and do a lot of unwise things because your mind is uncontrolled or undisciplined. So this is the qualities that the Buddha is suggesting that you look at in your own mind to see if you have these. And if you do, he shares teachings with you of how to actually eliminate them. In this book series, you have the words of the Buddha. You have a reference that takes you back to the original source teachings, where you can see in the original Pali Canon. The Pali Canon is the original teachings of the Buddha. It's the largest, most complete collection we have of his teachings. There's 45 books that are about this thick. And this reference takes you back to that so you can see where this comes from. Because what this book series does is it creates an excerpt and kind of consolidates the original teachings of the Buddha into a smaller version. Then you've got words from me underneath of this that are helping you to understand how to integrate this into your day-to-day life. And here you can see what I've done is I've taken the unwholesome quality of mind that the Buddha is talking about, and then I've provided you the antidote or the remedy of how to actually eradicate that particular quality, because there's a way to actually eradicate each individual one of those. Okay, so this is what you have access to be able to learn and grow and develop. And as I was mentioning at the beginning of our class, is this isn't a class where students will typically start. Like here in the Pali Canon English study group, oftentimes students have already studied all the foundational teachings from this first book before they move into these teachings. So if what I'm sharing with you is beyond your current understanding, that's okay. It's understandable. This is volume 9, but I try to make it to the point where you can understand a certain portion of this. So if you're really looking to get started on the path to enlightenment, this isn't necessarily the best class for you, but you'll surely learn something today. You'll surely be able to benefit from your time here, but just understand that oftentimes students are starting in our other programs to be able to really get started on the path to enlightenment. So do you guys have any questions on this particular chapter, anything that I shared about this particular chapter? No questions? Okay. So now we can move to this next one. This is chapter 22. Is there someone who would like to read this chapter?
Excitement to be abundant in all acts. Monks, if, while he walks, such sensual or harmful or cruel thoughts arise, and he does not welcome them, but rejects, expels, makes an end of them, drives them out of renewed existence, a monk who while walking becomes one who is called dedicated, diligent, always and forever strong in energy and determined. If while he stands such sensual or harmful or cruel thoughts arise, and he does not welcome them, but rejects, expels, makes an end of them, drives them out of renewed existence, a monk who, while standing, becomes one is called dedicated, diligent, always and forever strong in energy and determined. If while he sits such sensual or harmful or cruel thoughts arise, and he does not welcome them, but rejects, expels, makes an end of them, drives them out of renewed existence, a monk who while sitting becomes one is called dedicated, diligent, always and forever strong in energy and determined. If while he lies awake such sensual or harmful or cruel thoughts arise, and he does not welcome them, but rejects, expels, makes an end of them, drives them out of renewed existence, a monk who while lying awake becomes one is called dedicated, diligent, always and forever strong in energy and determined.
Okay, thank you, sir. So what the Buddha is referring to here is something in his core central teaching of the Eightfold Path called right effort. There's these 8 individual factors within his core central teaching of the Eightfold Path where he's guiding you in order to understand the path to enlightenment. And that's where students usually start, is with the Eightfold Path. Here, what he's saying is if any of these thoughts come up in the mind that are unwholesome, to apply what's called right effort, to eliminate them out of the mind. That's why you're actually meditating and doing breathing mindfulness meditation. When you're focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath, you're cutting that off, letting it go, and bringing the mind back to the breath. You're doing that so you can gain control and discipline over your mind, so that then in day-to-day life, when you're noticing these unwholesome thoughts coming up, you can then apply the ability to cut that off and let it go and restrain the mind. Whereas if you don't have that ability, if you haven't been training in meditation, you're not going to be able to do that. So when you're sitting in meditation and your mind moves off your breath and you're letting go and coming back to your breath, the goal of that meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. That's not what the goal is. The goal is to be able to discipline your mind, to be able to let go, let go, let go. Because that's what the mind's doing in the unenlightened state, is it's holding on. It wants things to be permanent. If you can think back to maybe a recent situation that you've had, maybe like a boyfriend or girlfriend has broken up with you. When you guys were together, you felt really happy, really excited that you had this person in your life. But then when you guys broke up, you might have been sad or frustrated or lonely or bored or like you were missing this person. But eventually, if your mind lets go, then you can be more peaceful. But the unenlightened mind doesn't know how to let go. So the Buddha teaches you through the meditation to be able to train your mind to let go. And then in day-to-day life, as what he's saying is walking, standing, sitting, or lying awake, if you're noticing an unwholesome thought coming up in the mind, you can let it go. Apply effort, determination, and dedication to let it go. And this is how you purify your mind. If there was a post or a pillar and there were animals that were tied to it and they were being pulled, they kept pulling in all these different directions. When it gets to the end of the rope, the animal is going to get yanked back to the post or pillar. And this wild animal that's maybe like a crocodile or a monkey or a snake that's pulling and pulling and pulling, and they keep getting yanked back to this post or pillar, eventually they're going to realize that they're tied to this post and pillar, and they're just going to sit down and be calm next to the post and pillar. Your mind is exactly the same way. It's going to keep pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. And if you learn how to yank it back and yank it back and yank it back, disciplining your mind, you'll be able to see that over time, your mind will just be still. It'll just be calm. It'll be stable and steady. But if you're not training your mind through meditation and through all these other teachings that the Buddha shared, you're not going to have the control and the discipline of your mind, that when your mind becomes angry, you're not going to know how to let that go because your mind's holding on. So the Buddha is teaching you that if you notice a sensual or harmful or a cruel thought arising, don't welcome that thought in the mind. Get rid of it. Let it go. And what will help you to be able to do that is practicing the breathing mindfulness meditation. That's going to help you to train your mind to let go. So any questions on this one? No questions? You have a question, Hugo? Yeah.
Yes, I practice cutting it off and letting it go, and 90% of the times works very well. What happens when it doesn't work and it keeps coming back and back and back? I typically get up and go for a walk and distract myself, but by suppressing this particular feeling, isn't it better? Some Buddhists believe that it's better just to watch it, not engage, and let it go that way. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so you're not suppressing the feeling. You're not suppressing the thought. That's not what you're doing. You're cutting it off and letting it go, getting it out of the mind. If you keep allowing your mind to experience these things, your mind's going to just stay wired to do that. So if you see something that is disagreeable to you, and then you notice the bodily sensations, then the mind becomes angry with a feeling of anger. If you keep allowing the mind to do that, it's going to stay wired to keep forming its inner feelings based on some external thing. And that's not the way that the Buddha taught. So if anybody's teaching you to observe your feelings and watch your feelings, this isn't what the Buddha taught, because your mind's just going to stay wired to continue to have those. So you're not allowing the mind to have the feeling and then suppressing it and pushing it down. That's not what the Buddha taught either, because that's not good for your mind. He's teaching you that when you notice the bodily sensations, before it even becomes a feeling, there's this tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. Cut it off and let it go before it becomes a feeling, because that's the early warning system alerting you that your mind is about to become angry. So if you can cut it off there, over time, your mind will be completely transformed, where it will no longer experience discontent feelings. In the situations where it's working for you, and 90% of the time, that means that your mind has a level of discipline that you're able to cut that off and let it go. Maybe the craving is a lot less, but now you haven't been practicing long enough to accumulate enough benefits that you're saying in 10% of the situations, you can't cut it off and let it go, or you have cut it off and it keeps coming back. This is normal because your mind hasn't matured enough. You haven't accumulated enough benefits yet. That's why you need to stay consistent with the gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And as you do, over time, you'll be able to control your mind 100% of the time. Eventually, you'll get to the point where there is no anger arising because you've eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing it. But in the meantime, cut off and let go. You're experiencing an improvement of 90% there. That's outstanding because you haven't been practicing the teachings that long. And then that 10% of the time where it's not able to be cut off and let go of, what you shared is what I teach, which is redirecting the mind. You need to redirect the mind. Like say you're at home watching the news, you notice this anger coming up because you're seeing something on the news. Rather than just sit there and dwell in that anger, try to cut that off and let it go internally. But if you're not able to do that, just turn off the news, get up and go out for a walk or go for a bike ride or something like this. This is going to redirect your mind in the opposite direction, and it's going to help your mind to let go. And as you're practicing breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity and all those other factors of the Eightfold Path, over time, your mind will accumulate more and more benefits, and you'll be able to let go in all situations. But it takes multiple months and even years to be able to get to that point. But as you gradually train your mind, you're going to see this transformation occurring, and ultimately you'll get to a point where there won't be any anger arising because you've eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing it. You're welcome. Okay, any other questions? Anything you guys would like to ask? Let me just check here online, see if we have any questions. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. Okay, so we have this next chapter. This is chapter 23. Would somebody like to read this one? This is the right effort that I was talking about that the Buddha is describing in the previous chapter. This is what he was actually referencing. Would someone like to read this one? You would like to read? Yeah, go for it. No need to be shy.
The four efforts. Monks, there are these four efforts. What for? The effort to restrain, that to abandon, that to make it arise, and the effort to preserve. And of what sort, monks, is the effort to restrain? Here, a monk generates intention for the non-arising of evil, unwholesome states that have not yet arisen. He makes an effort, applies his energy, he lays hold of and exerts his mind to this end. This monks is called the effort to restrain. And of what sort monks is the effort to abandon? Here, a monk generates intention for the abandoning of evil, unwholesome states that have arisen. He makes an effort, applies his energy, he lays hold of and exerts his mind to this end. This is called the effort to abandon. And of what sort monks is the effort to make arise? Here, he generates intention for the arising of wholesome states not yet arisen. He makes an effort, applies his energy, he lays hold of and exerts his mind to this end. This is called the effort to make arise. And of what sort monks is the effort to make preserve? Here, a monk generates intention for the establishing, for the non-confusion, for the more existence, for the increase, cultivation, and fulfillment of wholesome states that have arisen. He makes an effort, applies his energy, he lays hold of and exerts his mind to this end. This is called the effort to preserve. So these monks are the 4 efforts.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So the Buddha here is describing what he refers to in the Eightfold Path as right effort. This is the 6th factor of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha, and everything else plugs into it. And in the Eightfold Path, he's explaining to you exactly how to train your mind to get to enlightenment. And that's where a student would start off, is learning all of those 8 individual factors. And I teach those at different times. I'm actually going to be teaching a course this week coming up on Monday through Friday, where Monday morning I'm going to be teaching the Eightfold Path in detail. I'm going to be teaching all the ins and outs of that particular teaching. This particular course next week is called Harmony in Relationships. I'm going to teach you how to produce harmony within all your relationships. And you're welcome to come to any part of that you like. You can come to the entire course or just parts of it. We're going to meet at 9 a.m. here in the morning, and then we're going to go up until 3 p.m. in the afternoon. We're going to take an hour-and-a-half lunch break. We're going to take breaks in the morning. So you're welcome to come and attend that either here at the temple or online through our live stream. So we're going to start off that course on Monday morning learning the Eightfold Path. In this particular step, the 6th step called right effort, is what you need to do in order to train your mind and purify it of the unwholesome qualities and to cultivate the wholesome qualities. There's 4 efforts. What he's talking about here in the first one, when he's talking about restraining the mind, he's basically talking about preventing any unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind. There's certain things that are unwholesome that are not currently in your mind right now. I can give you an example, like you're probably not thinking about killing another human being. It's probably the farthest thing from your mind right now. It's not even in your mind at all. And what the Buddha teaches you as part of right effort is anytime there's something that is unwholesome, that is currently not in your mind, apply the effort to prevent that from ever coming into the mind. So if something like that ever tried to come into your mind, you'd prevent it. You're like, no, I'm not even going to think that way. No way. I would never kill another human being, right? So you would like to apply the effort to prevent that from coming into the mind. The second one here, to abandon, he's talking about any unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. You're going to need to eliminate those out of your mind. You might have certain unwholesome qualities that are coming up in your mind. Some examples that I'll typically give in classes is like, say somebody was in a relationship with an existing partner and they had a craving to go outside their relationship and have sex with somebody else. This is an unwholesome quality. This is going to produce unwholesome results in your life. When you start having sex with multiple partners like that, people are going to get jealous. People are going to get envious. People are going to fight. People have gotten beat up and murdered, sexually transmitted diseases. These are all things that happen as a result of the unwise decision to go outside of a loyal, loving, committed relationship. So if you notice something like that is coming up in your mind, that's an unwholesome thought. The Buddha teaches you to apply the right effort to cut that off and let it go and eliminate it out of the mind. Or say you're noticing anger or frustration coming up in your mind while you're at work or when you're at home. The Buddha is teaching you to cut that off and eliminate it. That's an unwholesome quality that's coming up in the mind. So you would need to apply right effort to cut that off, eliminate that unwholesome quality out of the mind. Then he teaches this make arise. What he's teaching here is that there are certain wholesome qualities that you're going to need to practice in order to be able to get to enlightenment. And he's saying if those qualities don't currently exist in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring those qualities into your mind. So for example, there's a quality of generosity where you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. You can share your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources. Because when your mind has craving, desire, attachment, it will tend to hold on to things very tightly. You'll tend to be somewhat selfish. You'll be disinterested in sharing with others. The mind's like, mine, 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 my mind. Everything's for me. And you don't feel comfortable to share with other people. Well, an enlightened being is not selfish. If you're holding on to your money or your time or your material possessions and you're just trying to hold on to it and accumulate everything for yourself, whereas if you spend 3 hours doing something, you want this in return, or if you spend 3 days doing this, you want this in return, you're unwilling to share with others. This is the selfishness of the mind. Well, in order to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to train the mind to be generous and share with other people and be comfortable in giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return from that other person. So you can do all kinds of things, like you could be walking into a store and you could notice that there's someone behind you and you might hold the door for them so that they can go through before you. But remember, you need to do this without any expectation of anything in return. Because if you're standing there with an expectation that they will say thank you, when they walk through the door and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated. You'll be agitated or annoyed. But that's your own mind that's causing that, because your mind is expecting everyone to do things a certain way. And that's the mind craving permanence when you live in an impermanent world. So you can notice if your mind doesn't have generosity, if you don't have that quality and you tend to be somewhat selfish, you can actually arise this generosity in your mind where you apply the effort to bring in that wholesome quality in the mind. Or say there's a lack of compassion in your mind. Say you don't have compassion. What compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. The opposite of this would be like indifference, where you could care less about what happens to other people. Maybe you see someone struggling on the side of the street. Maybe they're homeless. They don't have food or shelter. And you're like, so what? I don't care. It's not me. It's not my family. I don't care. That's indifference, right? The other side of that would be worry and anxiety. Oh my goodness, that person doesn't have food. Oh, what are we going to do? Right? Those are two opposite sides of the spectrum. What you would like to do is come to the middle, where you're practicing compassion, where you have concern for this being's misfortune. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do something about it, but you would like to have the mental quality of compassion, where you have concern for this being. Well, if you're noticing that your mind doesn't tend to have that quality, then you're going to need to bring that into the mind, applying right effort to be able to bring that compassion where you have concern for the misfortune of others. So if you live in this worried anxiety, or if you live in this indifference where you could care less of what happens to people, your mind's not yet in the middle. You need to come to the middle where you have concern for the misfortune of other beings. And it's right effort that's going to help you to be able to do that. Then there's what's being referred to here as the effort to preserve. This is to maintain, support, and encourage any wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. Because there are certain wholesome qualities that you currently have in your mind. Maybe you have loving kindness in your mind. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Maybe in certain situations you have that, where you have concern for others' misfortune, or you have this genuine interest in seeing them be well, and you have that quality. But maybe in other situations you don't. Maybe you're angry and frustrated and irritated, right? And that means that your loving kindness hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. Because in some situations you have loving kindness, but in other situations you don't. You have anger and bitterness and hostility. So you can get to a point where your mind is having love and kindness in all situations. But you're going to need right effort to apply the effort to bring this wholesome quality of loving kindness into the mind. Or say something like sympathetic joy. Sympathetic joy is the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. The opposite of that would be like envy or jealousy, where maybe in some situations you have sympathetic joy. You have joy for others' success. Maybe someone says, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand in about 6 months. And you're like, oh, that's great. You should go. That'll be a fun time. I went to Thailand. Oh, congratulations. You're going to have such a great time in Thailand, right? Maybe you have sympathetic joy. That's a wholesome quality that's in your mind. But maybe you're at work and someone applies for a promotion and you apply for that same promotion and they get the job instead of you. They get the bigger salary instead of you. Your boss doesn't promote you to that new job. And now maybe you're jealous or envious of that person. You're grumpy and irritable towards them. This is because of your mind. This is your craving, your desire, your attachment. You really wanted that job. And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But since you didn't get it, you're jealous and envious of this other person. So in these situations, you're going to need to apply right effort to arise this sympathetic joy, where you have joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. This is something you're going to need to apply the effort to bring up in your mind, maintain, support, and encourage this sympathetic joy, for example. So right effort is a practice of preventing unwholesome qualities from arising in the mind. It is to abandon or eliminate unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. It is to apply the effort to bring in or make arise certain wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind. And it is to support and encourage or preserve, maintain wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. Bring them to full growth and full perfection and full development. And you're going to need to apply the effort to do this. It's not going to happen naturally. You're going to have to apply the effort to do these things. So this is part of the Eightfold Path that the Buddha shares. It's called the 4 efforts, or the 4 right efforts. And this is one of the aspects of the practice that you would need to employ in order to move your mind to enlightenment. Do you guys have any questions on this? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused there. I've been reading book 1, The Right View, and this is all about the same thing, really. It's the consequences of one's actions and what your choices that are made.
This is part of the mental discipline section. Right view is part of the wisdom section. That's the first step. This is the 6th step, where now you're applying the effort to either prevent, eliminate, bring in, or maintain certain qualities. The way I teach this to my young son is I tell him to kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. That's what the Buddha is teaching you to do, is to apply the effort to do that. Where right view is just helping you to understand what's going on within your mind with the 4 Noble Truths. This is the 4 right efforts, different than the 4 Noble Truths.
I'm with you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Yeah. So what if a person experienced, let's say, unfortune or adversary in his life, and let's say he was following the rules, the traffic rules. He was crossing the road and he got crushed by a car, and it's just something like that happened in his life. And I think it's normal to have some negative feelings because physically and mentally and emotionally it's a big burden.
Yeah, it's normal to have painful feelings in the unenlightened state. But someone who got hit by a car, for example, and is now injured in the hospital, if they're frustrated, if they're irritated, if they're grumpy, what this is the mind's craving permanence. It's craving for this body to be permanently healthy, when it's not possible for this body to be permanently healthy. So it is normal for that person in the unenlightened state to be grumpy and irritable and frustrated. But if an individual that is enlightened experiences something like this, they wouldn't be grumpy or irritable or frustrated because they understand the situation that occurred. It is an impermanent situation, and that this body can't be permanently healthy. It doesn't matter how enlightened you are. you will still experience sickness of the body. So even an individual who gets in an accident, they can maintain their peace, they can maintain their joy, they can be polite and kind and friendly and respectful with everybody around them, no matter what is transpiring. So even in these kinds of situations, maybe right now you're used to experiencing grumpy or irritableness or frustration or things like that. But in the enlightened mental state, you wouldn't experience that any longer, because there's no longer a craving for permanent health of the body, and the individual understands within their own mind that this is a impermanent situation, and now all they need to do is apply wise decision making to become healthy, and now the body will be restored back to health. Because just like the body being healthy is not permanent, that you're going to be sick, being sick is not permanent either. You can get back to health. But if you crave what you do not have, you will be frustrated. So if you lack resources and you crave to be rich, you will be sad and frustrated that you're not rich. Or if you're sick and you crave to be healthy, you will now be frustrated or agitated because you're not healthy. This is what the unenlightened mind does. But the enlightened mind won't do that.
But in this particular situation,
Yeah, might get another mic. The microphones are impermanent, just like the Buddha taught, right? Even the batteries are impermanent.
yeah. But so some situations you can clearly know the triggers, and for just say physically, you've done nothing wrong. You're following the rules, but you got hit by a car, and there are other traits, other causes, and how to not blame, because I say if it's raining and you got wet, you're not gonna blame the weather or the sky, but you got hit by a car, and the driver caused your illness, let's say.
There's no benefit in blaming others. It doesn't produce anything beneficial. If you blame a other person for what you're experiencing, it doesn't solve anything. You still are unhealthy, you're still sick, you still need to get healthy again. So it's better to not go to the blame game, but figure out what were the decisions that I made that led to this particular situation. This is the way that you would cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and experience different results. If you just blame other people for the things that you experience, you never get to cultivate wisdom to make different decisions. Whereas if there's something that you don't particularly care for in your life, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if you're just blaming other people, you never get the opportunity to cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and experience different results. So you'll keep experiencing that same thing over and over and over again. This is what the unenlightened mind tends to do, is it looks for other people to blame. And in that situation, you're never going to improve what you experience. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is to look inward, cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you'll experience different results, because blaming isn't going to help you with any situation at all.
Yes, but what is right or wrong? Like if I got hit by a car and I don't do anything, like what is right? What the common rules in this society, and yeah, there must be consequences for that driver, and otherwise the cause and effect doesn't apply to him.
Yeah, there's still cause and effect there, right?
Yeah.
That there's a certain cause that led to this accident, and there's going to be a certain effect as well, right? That's the natural law of Gotama. I don't know why you're saying that there isn't any cause and effect, because you're describing cause and effect through your entire example.
It's because you were saying not blaming the driver, saying, but I feel like I have the right to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Part of
you have a right to blame people.
Just to search for the justice.
What benefit does it serve you to blame other people?
Not I don't know, just feel like someone did the wrong thing. Just pick it up.
Well, what if it was just a common mistake? Mistakes happen, right? That's why it's called an accident, right? Because it wasn't necessarily intentional and purposeful, right? So what the unenlightened mind is going to do is it's going to want to go around the world and think of the world as black and white. There's rules, and everybody has to follow these rules. And now when somebody doesn't follow the rules, they are wrong and I am right. Right? And now you feel like maybe emboldened. You feel like above other people because I am right and they are wrong. And now I can blame them. But that doesn't help you. That doesn't help you cultivate wisdom to figure out what could you do differently. So I don't know if you realize about 2 months ago, I was in a motorbike accident. I don't know if you've heard that, but I was in a motorbike accident. And basically I was coming around a turn. I was on a brand new motorbike that I've only had for like 5 days. And it had a higher center of gravity. I wasn't used to this motorbike. I was coming around the turn. There was some water on the road and I fell down and I hit my head and I was unconscious. And I had to go to the hospital and I was in the hospital and it took me about 2 months to recover from this motorbike accident. So if I blamed the people who put the water on the street, because it was probably, like these ice trucks go around and, they delivering ice to different businesses early in the morning and they have melting ice in the back of their truck and it puts water all over the street. If I were to blame them, like, how dare they put this water on that doesn't solve anything, right? Because there's going to be another situation where there's water on the road. And if the individual doesn't make different decisions, you're going to keep experiencing the same results. So the different decisions that I made that was like my 6th motorbike accident in about 23 years of coming to Thailand and living here in Thailand for a period of time. I decided, you know what? I'm going to get a car. And the students ended up buying me a car, right? Instead of blaming the water on the street, instead of being angry or frustrated about it, I was like, you know what? What are the different decisions that I can make here? This body is getting old. When I first came to Thailand in 2002, I had my very first motorbike accident. I was quite a bit younger back then. I was only 27 years old, right? And the body was able to recover from it pretty quickly, right? But now it took me 2 months to recover from this accident, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to start making some different decisions here. Blame wouldn't have helped anything. Blaming those people or it might not even been the ice truck. Who knows how that water got there, right? But nonetheless, I experienced this accident and now I need to look at it and say, well, what are the different decisions that I can make to ensure that this doesn't happen again? And now I've got safer transportation because I could still get an accident in a car, right? Because you're still going to experience, no matter how enlightened you are, you're going to still experience sickness, aging, death, loss, and destruction. These are the 5 unobtainable things. You can't obtain permanent health, permanent youthfulness, permanent life. You can't permanently have material possessions. You're going to lose material possessions at certain points in your life. Your money, your different things, you're going to lose those things and you're going to experience destruction. Certain material objects are going to be destroyed because of the universal truth of impermanence. So if I go around and blame people for these things that I'm experiencing, sickness, aging, death, loss, or destruction, you're not understanding the way the world works. And now you're just causing your mind to be frustrated and agitated, and you're not really able to make wiser decisions to experience improved results.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I realize that the things that the Buddha teaches, it's a shift in the way that you think. Like right now, you think a certain way, and then when you hear the way the Buddha is teaching it, it's like a complete shift. It's different than what you currently think. And that's why it's going to be so helpful for you. Because if you keep thinking the way that your mind currently thinks, you'll continue to be frustrated. You continue to be agitated or annoyed. So you're going to need to make a shift in your perspective in the way that you process the world around you. And this is what we call awakening the mind, cultivating wisdom about the world around you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just another thing about what the lady was saying. And it said, if someone committed a crime against you, stabbed you or ran you over, and, they was completely in the wrong, all right, you can forgive them, but they still have to answer to the law.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order to do that, you have to put blame on them. Well, look, he went through a red light. So, you know, he still has to pay for it. Otherwise, people will run him mock doing everything.
If
you have to, I mean, in order for him to do that, you have to blame him for it, because, you know, if he didn't go through that red light, my dad would be alive or would be safe now. So you do have to be a certain blame. You have to put a certain blame on the culprit.
Okay, so an individual cannot run and hide from the consequences of the decisions that they've made. If anybody makes a decision to harm other beings, there is going to be a result. There's going to be an effect. Your blame doesn't change that, right? If someone went out and they murdered someone, you don't have to blame them in order to have them experience the consequences of that. They're going to experience the consequences of that. They're potentially going to get arrested. If they don't get arrested, they're going to have guilt and shame and fear in their mind. They're going to have difficulties and struggles in their relationships. They're going to have a whole litany of different issues that they're experiencing in their day-to-day life. Your blame isn't going to change anything about that. What you choosing not to blame others does is it allows your mind to be free. Because when you're having this resentment and hostility towards others, because that's essentially what the blame is doing, where it's having resentment and hostility towards another being, you're just harming yourself. So if you went to the police and you said, hey, this person murdered my friend, you're not blaming them. You're just reporting a crime. Right? And now you just report the crime and you say, hey, this person murdered my friend. I saw it with my own eyes. I suggest you go take care of this and arrest them. That's not blaming them or having resentment or hostility towards them. That's just reporting a crime. And that's different than the blame. The blame is to have resentment and hostility towards someone. That's what you don't need to have. There's nothing that's going to benefit you in that.
So just following up, like say, use another word. If someone drive restless, really, not really careful, it's okay to remind them. Hey, you might need to put more intention in your driving, because otherwise you would put yourself in danger and put other people on the road in danger. It's okay to do that instead of blaming. Hey,
yeah.
It's just very different.
Like if I was in a car with someone and they were driving erratically, I would probably say, is this the way you typically drive? And they would say, yeah, this is the way I drive. I'll say, okay, can you let me out? I would like to get out here. Right? Instead of trying to force or control this person to do things a certain way, because that's the way that they drive, and they're not going to magically snap their fingers and change the way they drive because I'm in the car and I'm not interested in putting my expectations on this person. I'm just going to ask them a question. Is this the way you typically drive? Yeah, this is the way I drive all the time. Okay, can you stop the car for a moment? I'd like to get out. I can make different choices. Right? Instead of putting an expectation on this person, now you retain the ability to make choices about what you experience in life. But when you start putting expectations on other people, now you're putting what you experience in the hands of another person. And now you're trying to force and control that person to do things a certain way. And now you're going to be subjected to whatever decisions they make. You would like to always maintain the ability to make choices about your own life on your own. And that's where you can make different decisions and you'll experience different results.
Some, like in the Eightfold, I think, Eightfold Path, it has, you have to develop empathy, sympathy towards others. So what if you saw this is happening, someone is hurting others, and you don't, let's say, step in, and you see that happen, but you feel for the witness.
The Buddha isn't teaching you what you should or shouldn't do in any given situation, because that would be like a decision tree. That would be like, if you see this, do that. If you see this, do that. Like if you're walking down the street and you see a person getting beat up by 6 people, and they have guns and knives and sticks and all these kinds of things, what are you going to do by stepping in into that situation. You're going to get beat up and stabbed and murdered yourself, right? So that might not be a wise situation for you to step into. It might be wiser for you to go get the police or go get another 3, 4, 5 people and then try to help this person, right? So if the Buddha gave you like an exact, if you see someone getting beat up, step in and solve it. That's like a permanent answer for every single situation. When every single situation is different variables, so you can't get a permanent decision tree that says, if this is happening, do this. Well, now if there's one person that's fighting, maybe you decide to step in and maybe not, right? And maybe these are two grown men that are 250 pounds bulked up with muscles. What are you going to do stepping in the middle of those two people, right? Hey, they would like to fight. They're choosing to fight. Hey, go ahead and fight. That's your results. I'm not stepping into that. Why should I stop you from doing something that is unwise? That unwise decision that you're making to fight each other, that's affecting you. It's not going to affect me. If I step in there and one of you punch me, now I got a big swollen eye, I got to go to the hospital and spend my money to be able to get well. Hey, you guys would like to act like cats and dogs and fight? So be it. Doesn't affect me. Right? So you got to be able to understand that your role in this life isn't to go out into the world and fix everybody else. That's sometimes what people think. That's not your role in this world. Your role is to experience peace and joy within your own life, and stepping into other people's life and trying to force them to do things your way isn't going to produce peace and joy in your life. So you need to be able to maintain the ability to make wise decisions. And that doesn't include stepping into people's fights and arguments. If those people are choosing to fight and argue, okay, that's on them. In some cases, that might be what you choose to do, right? In other situations, maybe there's other things you can do. Like when I've been at home before in the past, when my wife and my son were starting to talk rough with each other, I would say, hey guys, time out. Come on. You guys are family. Like, we can love each other. We don't need to treat each other this way, right? And now we don't experience any of that. Like it's been 5 years or so before there, maybe 6 years, 7 years that there's been any arguments or fights in our home. But that's because in the past I stepped in, right? And I was able to help them. But I was able to influence these two people because it was my wife and it was my son. But two individual people who are out in the public who don't know me at all, and they're punching and fighting each other, I can't influence that. Those people are choosing to fight, so be it. That's their choice. And they'll experience the consequences of that fight. They'll get black eyes, they'll get bloody noses, they'll go to jail, they'll have to pay hospital bills, and then maybe they'll learn through that situation. So our role in this life isn't to go out and fix other people. Everybody needs to make their own decisions and be responsible for their own actions and their own decisions.
Thank you.
And that's, by the way, where the natural law of karma is the most unbiased teacher you will ever find. It's going to show you where you're making wise decisions and where you're making unwise decisions. Mm-hmm. All right. No more questions? Yeah, yes, sir. You get the microphone right there.
Hi, sometimes I feel frustration and jealousy are actually a source of motivation. For example, I want to get promotion or I want to get rich, but when I cannot get it, I feel frustrated. Mm-hmm. Then what if I get rid of this feeling? Then it stops me from trying hard to achieve what I want. Mm-hmm. Will it be like okay?
So what the unenlightened mind tends to be able to see is this craving, desire, attachment, where you're chasing after things, and as you said, you're trying hard, right? You're pressuring yourself to get rich and wealthy. You can see that very clearly because you probably do that on a daily basis. And the unenlightened mind can see the other side too, where you're dull and you're lethargic and you're not doing anything and you're kind of lazy and could care less about what you do in the world. You can see those two sides really clearly. What the Buddha is teaching you and inviting you to do is come to the middle, where you can gradually work towards your goals, objectives, or interests, but you don't form your inner feelings based on whether you accomplish it or not. So there's no harm in working towards improved income and more wealth, but it's when you're craving it, you're desiring, you're pushing yourself, you're trying really hard, that if you get it, you'll be happy, and if you don't get it, you'll be sad or frustrated. That's not a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment. That's your mind chasing after things and forming your inner feelings based on whether you get it or not. And over here, where you're dull and lethargic, you're not going to be peaceful there either. So what you need to be able to do is learn how to come to the middle, where you can gradually work towards things through wise decisions. And now as you're gradually working towards it, as you're accomplishing your goals, okay, great, I'm accomplishing my goals, but I don't need to get all happy and excited just because I'm accomplishing my goals. I can be happy through the entire journey of experiencing this. And then if I don't accomplish the goals, that's okay too. I don't have to be sad and miserable. I'm just going to keep making my way through wise decision making to work towards a goal. So if you're 80% of the way towards your goal and you haven't met it yet, you can look at it and be like, I haven't met my goal, right? I could extend my timeline and give myself more time. Let me give myself more time. Or I could add resources to this. I could add some more resources to help me to be able to get to the goal. Or you know what? 80% of this goal is actually just fine. I'm fine with $800 million. Maybe that's what you say. I'm fine with 800 million. I don't need to get to $1 billion, right? 800 million, that's just enough for me, right? I'm just throwing out numbers, right? But you can just pause there. You'd be like, you know what? I'm fine with the 80%, right? So there's no harm in choosing to pursue wealth, right? The money is not the problem. The problem that you're experiencing is the mind's craving it. It's longing and it's yearning. And if you don't get it in a certain time frame, you're going to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So you're going to have a miserable life doing that because you're going to feel like you're always pushing yourself. You're going to feel exhausted. You're going to feel tired in certain situations. You're going to feel stress and anxiety. Instead, you can learn how to come to the middle where you gradually pursue something through wise decision making, whether it's money or anything else. I mean, look at the Buddha 2,500 years ago. He had the goal of sharing his teachings with the entire world. That was his goal. 2,500 years ago. But he knew that that wasn't going to happen during his lifetime because the language that he spoke, it wasn't a worldwide language. So he couldn't have accomplished it during his lifetime. Travel wasn't so easy, it had many factors that were hindering him from being able to accomplish that. But that was his goal, to share his teachings with this entire world, but he knew it wouldn't be during his lifetime. So he just gradually made wise decisions towards accomplishing that goal. And now he just could remain peaceful and joyful because he knew that what he was doing was working towards accomplishment of this goal. But he wasn't chasing it and he wasn't lazy either. He just gradually, day by day, worked towards sharing his teachings into the world. And you can do the same thing, whether it's wealth or money or a bigger house or a boyfriend or girlfriend, a family, whatever it is that you would like in life, you can just gradually pursue it. And now you can accomplish it slowly but surely. Yeah. The mind's craving is going to want it right now. I want those pleasant feelings right now. It's kind of like a drug, right? It's like a drug addict wanting that high. But the problem is when you do that, you're going to also do this. You're going to come down to the bottom, right? So if you chase a high, okay, maybe you got it, but then you're going to crash when that thing isn't there anymore. So instead, just gradually make your way towards your goals and objectives. All right, so I'm going to end class here. It's time to kind of end our class. I'll just end by thanking all of you guys for your questions. Thank you for reading. Thank you for the discussion. It's nice to see all of you guys and spend time with you this morning. If you'd like to learn more, there's classes on Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturdays. As I mentioned, I'm typically teaching in a more traditional style. Tomorrow, we're going to be in Volume 1, Chapter 22. This particular chapter is titled Mental Health, a Modern Day Delusion. This is where I'm going to teach you about things like anorexia, bulimia, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, ADHD, ADD. There's certain causes and conditions that are producing these kinds of things that are in the mind that oftentimes people think it's biological, that these things are happening because of some defect in the brain. I'm going to help you to be able to see in a way that you can independently verify that it's not biological that is causing these things. It's actually an untrained mind. And when you cultivate the mind and you train the mind, an individual who's been diagnosed with these kinds of things, you can actually eliminate all these symptoms. You don't have to be relegated to medication for the rest of your life. You can actually get to a point where you're experiencing the peace and the joy, no matter what the state of your mind is right now, it's not permanent. So I'm going to show you how all these various things that are in common modern discussions about mental health can actually be solved through the teachings of the Buddha. So if you'd like to learn that, I'll be doing that starting at 9 o'clock tomorrow in a more traditional style of learning. And then on Monday, I'm going to be starting that course of harmony in relationships, Monday through Friday. And then, of course, on Wednesday, students often join us on those days as well. So whatever you guys choose to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class, or anytime you need my help, feel free to reach out. I'm here to help you. So be well and take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Ni hao. Or no, 再见. 再见. I said wrong.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.